reducing them into being less than a human being through the seasoning process and so forth. So if we look even at the modern colonial reparations movements, Kenya, Hereros, Namibia, South Africa, Zimbabwe, let us look at the history of those countries. And we will see the same people that took us away were the same people that enslaved them on the continent, in their own homeland, and also committed all the crimes of colonialism. So we have to get our facts right. And this can only strengthen our advocacy, our discourse, as well as enable us to win the hearts and minds of African peoples, African descended peoples worldwide, but also the wider public. What we are doing therefore in the UK is making effective links with the environmental movement, the global justice movements, the peace movements, the anti-war movements, the struggles against privatization, not only of lands, but resources, even basic resources such as water. Many parts of Africa, water is being privatized. This is part of the genocide. So therefore, the crimes, the damage, the harm, the debt is actually increasing, not decreasing. And as one of my scholar activist brothers in the struggle, Kofi Mawuli-Klue, says, the best way to make reparations for the past is to prepare for the future. So we must not only hold up all those great freedom fighters of the past, we must also see what they saw. We must seek what they sought, and we must continue that unfinished business of liberation. So how is it we're able to ensure that we are challenging neo-colonial enslavement today? That is a reality. The HIV/AIDS pandemic. This must form part of our reparations advocacy, and we must be able to develop effective strategy to be able to tackle this modern day genocide. Even debt, the way in which through privatization of water that people are dying of diseases that were eradicated in the Western Hemisphere a long time ago. The loss of life, the shortened life, all this amounts to genocide. And whilst we cannot do anything about the lives that were lost in the Middle Passage, we can do something about saving our own lives. We can do something about ensuring that the harms that we have suffered historically and contemporarily do not continue to be meted out against our family wherever we are in the world. So we have to continue and complete that Pan-African revolution. We do not have independence. So many of us who are even stopping at the AU and thinking that somehow that is it, these Bantustans, we are going to continue to have wars, civil conflict in Africa because we are still operating under the frameworks of the Europeans that colonized us. If we think we are going to get peace and justice by trying to utilize their structures, they're talking about globalization, but yet we are holding on to these neo-colonial Bantustans. So we have to take that vision of the Nkrumahs and all those first generation of freedom fighters in the struggle for independence. We have to take it forward and ensure that we're talking not just about an African union, but broaden it to the Pan-African Union, and looking at how Africa will not just incorporate a sixth region of the diaspora, but totally liberating our continent. Because right now our continent is not liberated. And many of us are returning home, but then do we recognise the condition of many of those that stayed? So we have to tackle neo-colonialism today. The crippling debts, these odious debts, and part of our reparations, advocacy, claims, demands is about debt repudiation. These are odious debts in law. We're not talking about debt cancellation, we're not talking about aid, because even if we look at the so-called debt repayments of a country like Nigeria in 2005, the amount that Nigeria paid back was more than Britain